What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast, Avarice Trading. On today's installment, we're going to be doing commentary on the movie Pump Up the Volume, starring Christian Slater from 1990. So, if you're uninitiated, I usually start off the podcast by making a cup of coffee. Then I load a bowl, I hit the bong, I do a countdown, we start the movie, and you'll be able to slightly hear it in the background from there, and I'll be commenting over it, offering insight, joking around. Sorry about the running water. Keurig needs more water in it. Anyway, so yeah, I'll be just kind of bullshitting over the top of it. You will be able to partially hear it if you don't want to watch along. We're venturing out on this one so far. All my previous commentaries and or reviews have been on horror franchises. Not to be confused with horror franchises. Horror. Horror. Horror and horror those words are too close together. I know they're spelled vastly different, but it's hard to say them in a way that's distinctive from one another. Anywho, so yes, we will be moving out of the horror domain today, and I guess you would call this like a drama, maybe? It's definitely not a scary movie. It has some comedy elements to it, but it's more of like a teen drama. But it's a very unique style one, at least in my opinion. It does a great job of capturing the feeling of being in high school. Just the actual, like, the social dynamics of it, and the want to be able to express yourself, the want to fit in. The want to fit in with your peers, but not necessarily to have to fit into the mold that the adults are telling you need to fit into. It's just a great commentary on that period of time when, just an explosion of suburbs and kids feeling like they don't have a lot of meaning in their life when they get shipped across the country and have to go to this new school in white bread land. The angst and the pressure of that you feel when you're young. Of course, being an adult now, you go back and take that any day over what you have now, most likely. Just the freedom and the lack of responsibility, but you don't appreciate it until it's gone, unfortunately. At least most people don't. I know I didn't. I didn't realize how much freedom I had until, I'd say the big thing that made me wake up and realize how much freedom I used to have was when I had a kid. So once you have a kid, you realize how many opportunities, how many things. I don't want to make it sound like having a kid is a bad thing. I'm not at all. In fact, having a kid is probably the main driving force motivation-wise that I've had in my life. Nothing caused me to get my shit together quicker or more effectively than having a kid. But it's the little things, anything you want to do, where you want to go somewhere, where you want to do something, you have to figure out what you're going to do with the kid. Can the baby come? Who's going to watch it? All those sorts of things. It just, again, you don't realize what you had until it was gone. I don't know how I got on that rant. Oh, because of the teenagers and always feeling like they have all this pressure to conform, etc. I'm feeling a little bit rough today. I'm still kind of sick. So, I might have to lean on you guys a little bit. I might not be as strong as normal, so I'll have to lean on you because I'm not strong. See what I did there? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and rip the bong here, and then we will start the movie. You probably heard my dog come out and start. She gets all dopey and happy when I start recording. I guess because she hears me talking, and then she comes out here wagging her tail and shoving her face into me and making a bunch of noise. And it's the same reaction I get when I get home. Like I just walked in the door, but I've literally been home all day. Not all day, but for hours. She was just asleep in the other room. Suddenly she hears me talking and comes out here like, "Oh my God, where have you been? I'm so happy to see you." Anyway, we are going to start the movie now. Counting down, 3, 2, 1, play. There we go. Nice and smooth. Let's make it smooth. Rough. That wasn't that great, was it? This movie is also, so I talked about the, the capturing the teenage angst portion of it and kind of the getting stuffed into suburban white bread land portion of it. But there's also the pirate radio portion of it, the expressing your own personal voice. Everybody has a voice. Everybody has a right to say what's on their mind type of deal. Which was a far more revolutionary idea at the time, at least over a medium like radio, than it is now. There's way fewer barriers to entry to something like what he's doing than excuse me. I mean to say there were far more barriers to entry back then when he was doing this than there would be today. I mean, look at me right here. I have a phone, and that's what I'm recording this on. I have a reasonably powered computer that helps me edit videos and an internet connection. It doesn't take much more than that. He needs a whole shortwave radio system and a broadcaster and a phone. Like, he needs all this fucking shit. I was just talking over that great shot. I meant to not do that, but I forgot. But it's just showing the houses. It's just house after house after house. It looks like a honeycomb. Sometimes they're here in Portland, when you're driving down the freeway up on the hill, there's some apartment buildings, and they literally look like a honeycomb. I don't know why that trips me out, but it does. It just looks like a giant honeycomb to me. And that's when the idea that, like, what people do and that cities aren't natural is weird to me. Because you look at something like that collection of houses, and it registers as being like a honeycomb. Well, what's a honeycomb or a beehive? It's where the bees live. It's a thing that they manufacture for themselves to live in. It's their self-built environment. That's all a city is. So if people are natural, then a city is natural, just as if bees are natural, a beehive is natural. We just have so many processes for refining and creating that these things that we make are very foreign to anything that would just naturally occur. Whereas a beehive looks very similar to anything that you would find in nature, like a tree or something to that effect. We polish our things up and make them look nice and distinct and different from nature. This is also a great screen cap in time as far as the style, the music. It's all great. This movie is a nostalgic fireball. So Christian Slater, if you don't know, is a pirate DJ in this movie, or a DJ on a pirate radio station. He calls himself Happy Harry Hard-On. He uses a voice disguiser. He's actually a high school student, freshly moved to Arizona from New York. And every night, I think it's at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, he goes on and broadcasts. This theme song introduced me to Leonard Cohen, and I've loved it ever since. This is the best fucking theme song. It sucks that it already got used, because I would love to use it for something. So loaded, everybody knows, with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor. The rich get rich, that's how it goes. And everybody knows. It's the song this is such a fucking perfect song for this movie because it's a cut the bullshit song. If you listen to the words, everybody knows he's painting out all this shit that everybody knows and how they go against it anyway. They just cross their fingers and jump off the bridge. And that's what the character that Christian Slater is playing is constantly trying to convey to people. He's like, this system is fucked, but everybody's just doing it anyway. And this is a screenshot of a period in time when Christian Slater was like a heartthrob. Let's be honest, he didn't age well. I love him, but this is in 1990. If you go to Very Bad Things in 98, he looks like a totally different person.
It's everywhere. It's running through that old pipeline out there, trickling along the dumb concrete river and coming up through the drains of those lovely tract homes we all live in. So who is it?
He's got a beautiful haircut. That girl looked kind of like Winona Ryder, but I don't think it was her. The football field's where the reception is the coolest.
This is where the reception is the coolest.
As if there could be a quality of coolness to a radio reception. It's either good or it's not. So it could be better, but how could it be cooler? It's like a bullshit marketing term. So he's talking about how his parents sold him out when they moved to Arizona, and they made him everything he is today, so he hates the bastards. And he's the voice of the voiceless. He appeals heavily to disenfranchised teenagers. Pardon me. You guys might have to bear with a little bit of like frog voice and a sniffling and cough here and there. I'm doing the best I can to trudge through this, but I am slightly compromised. He does these fake masturbating segments all the time. And he's pushing an envelope. He's giving them what they want. Because he is them. He knows what they want. He's got a wild cherry Diet Pepsi. Which is funny because if you look at the ingredients on wild cherry Pepsi, it'll say artificial wild cherry flavor. Which just seems like an oxymoron to me because what's wild about a wild cherry if it's artificial? When was it wild? Seems like it's pretty domestic. God damn that bedroom. Floral shit and wallpaper. Some of the stages we go through as a culture, decoratively, fashion-wise, color schemes, they can get pretty bad. I'd say that's way worse than anything the 70s put out. I'd take olive green and burnt orange over that fucking floral wallpaper pattern. He's self-deprecating but they all hold him up on this pedestal. They think he's this god. He accepts letters. He's got a pretty fucking complex system going on here for himself if you want to really look at it. He'd be a great entrepreneur. In the days of the internet, this guy is a star. He would have a brilliant podcast today, and it would be reproducible, and there would be you'd be able to serialize it and have it downloadable, and people would be able to go back through the catalog or the archive and listen to older stuff. Whereas on this, kids are recording them on cassette tapes on the radio and then selling the tapes at school. This is before CDs, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I don't know if it's completely before, but CDs haven't completely taken over. And if you wanted to record something off the radio, you couldn't record it onto a CD. that capability wasn't available. So you had to record it onto a cassette tape. He's a very smart kid. He doesn't find anything challenging or inspiring about the world that he finds himself in, the environment that he's in, and what he's expected to do. He's not really getting the point. He doesn't see why this is the way things are, essentially. And he's disenfranchised or jaded by that. And so now he's holed up in his room all the time. He does these broadcasts and he just releases his frustration. And he gets to play great music, and a lot of the music that these kids have never heard before. And he's fucking up his room with a golf club, pretending to masturbate again. I would love to have a podcast where I could just play fucking songs, but I don't know how the licensing works for that. And I think you gotta pay them every time you play it, right? If it's on a separate broadcast. So that could get to be fucking ridiculous. I should hit up Atmosphere and Slug and just see how much it would cost for like a one-time fee to permanently license all of their music. That'd probably be a lot of money. But if I had the entire Atmosphere catalog, I wouldn't need to play anybody else. If you don't know, Atmosphere is a duo. One is a producer named Anthony Davis. The other is a rapper named Sean Daly. They go by Ant and Slug. They're from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they are the bomb diggity. If you've ever seen any of my YouTube videos, sometimes in the background I have a gold board with black paint on it, or black writing on it that says Atmosphere. When life gives you lemons, you paint that shit gold. That's the name of one of their albums, and that's what that's in reference to, is that group and that album. It's actually it's a board that I painted gold, and then I took a projector and I projected the letters onto it, and then I made dotted lines around the edges, turned the projector off, and painted it in. So it came out looking really clean. It looks stenciled, because it basically was. So I took a piece of shit board and I painted it gold. How you like them apples? Or lemons? Whatever. Another woven in element is that his dad works at the school. So he's going through his dad's office looking for documents that he can use as ammunition against school officials on his radio show, because he suspects that something's fucked up about the school. Their school gets very high test scores, is super high rated in the state and in the country, yet he notices that nobody there is very happy, and they seem to be kicking out a lot of kids, and there's a disconnect. So he's trying to reconcile that and figure it out. He's got an inquisitive mind. They're just smoking in the house. That's how shit was back then. My parents smoked in the house when I was a kid. Now I smoke, but definitely not in the house. When I first moved, I lived in an apartment. Well, when I first moved out of my parents' house, I lived in a house with myself, my girlfriend, and a bunch of other friends. And then from there, we all kind of split up, and my girlfriend and I moved into our own apartment, and we smoked in there. And when we moved out and I had to clean and paint the walls, and I realized what I was doing to the interior of that place, I was like, okay, fuck this. I'm never smoking inside again. The closest I'll come is I stand at the patio door with it open like 4 inches, and I stick my arm outside with a cigarette. I do that when I smoke while I'm recording these commentaries.
Pretty good, huh? Leading with your heart.
The English teacher is talking about this brilliant writing, and it's his. And then the classic kind of, I don't know if you want to say genius or prodigy, but the intelligent people seem to do that kind of stuff. That I just threw it together last night, and she says, yeah, it's practically illegible. That's how the wheels are always spinning, but they're not necessarily spinning about the same thing. I remember one time we had if you've ever read the book The Most Dangerous Game, we had an English assignment that we had to rewrite the ending, and we were given like, I think it was a week. It might have only been a weekend, but at 11 p.m. the day before it was due, I realized that I had forgotten. Might not have been 11. It might have been like 10. But it was late. It was dark. I was in bed watching TV, and it hit me. Fuck. I didn't write that thing. And that was the type of homework assignment you couldn't just get to class and bullshit early. You had to spend some time on that. You know, you can't sit down at your chair 15 minutes before class and write several pages of a story. So I sat up in my bed I put my English book in my lap with a few pieces of paper, turned on like Sports Center or whatever the fuck it was, and I sat there and I wrote this whole story until like 2 in the morning. And then, when I was still a senior in high school, but my best friend, he was graduated. We were taking a writing class at the college, at the community college, and he had a whole shitload of work that he had to make up and turn in on the day of the final. So I went over there to help him with it, and we stayed up all night and then went straight to our final. And then he had to go to work. We worked together, but he had to go to work. I didn't have to work till later that day, but I had to go to school. And then when I got out of school, I had to go to work, and he was still at work. We ended up being up for like 40-something hours. It was kind of shit happens. For this type of like a teen movie, this is pretty well written. They weave a lot of good elements into it. This book that he's returning is by Lenny Bruce, kind of credited as being the first stand-up comedian, a major warrior for free speech and against censorship. And that's another kind of underlining thing of the theme of this movie is the censorship and the free speech aspect of it. It covers a lot of shit. It's a pretty deep movie. I don't mean to be waxing poetic and sound all fucking nostalgic over it like some stoner who's trying to tell you that the moon is a space station. But if you really look at this movie, it's got a lot of layers.
Here where your parents are? Because after all, it is a jungle out there.
I don't know how appealing it is to an older audience, or if you discover it once you're older, because I discovered it when I was like, I want to say like 17, so I was right in the wheelhouse. It's perfect for me. But if it came out when you were already in your late 20s or 30s, it might not have had the resonance, and so you might not have really attached yourself to the ideas of it as much, unless you're able to take yourself back to that mindset. I feel differently now than I did when I was a teenager about the world and, you know, social aspects and you know, my relationship with my parents, all that kind of stuff. Time helps you get a perspective on those things. So I definitely feel differently now than I did about those things then. But I can totally understand the sentiment of this character in the movie and the teenagers in this movie. I get it.
60s, school, principals.
It all comes back to that fucking song. I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. Like, that's... It's an unsolvable riddle. But that's what everybody wishes. He's reading a letter from the guidance counselor to the principal recommending that this girl right here be expelled because she's pregnant. So this is the type of thing that he's looking to address and uncover. And a realistic social issue of the time. I think teen pregnancy's down now, but I don't know. My mom was a teen mom. My mom was pregnant in high school. Just a few years before this, in fact. It was a legitimate issue. And this is the guidance counselor, Mr. Deeves.
We're doing a piece on high school.
Look at those bongo drums. Could you play me the Halloween theme on those? This guy looks like any pedophile you've ever seen.
Tell us a bit about what you do.
Even some of the ones you haven't.
American Values Program,
Color scheme in this room.
in which
Was he eating out of an aluminum can?
ethical situations, sex education,
Like, it looked like he took the top off a soup can and then was just eating right out of the can.
A sleazy country, you know.
Badass tiny TV over his shoulder. Growing up, my TV was about that size. I had a 13-inch color TV in my bedroom. I was spoiled. I also had a VCP. It's a video cassette player. It didn't have the ability to record. I don't really know why. I don't know why they make them without the ability to record, and I don't know why somebody thought that it was important that I not have the ability to record. I didn't even have cable in my room at the time, especially no like movie channels or anything with nudity. What would I record? Anyway, for my 5th birthday, I got that TV, my video cassette player, and the VHS Jurassic Park. And the Jurassic Park VHS came with a fold-out poster that I put on my wall. And we're talking about the original OG Jurassic Park. With Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill. Excuse me. So like any show that you've heard on the radio, Loveline is a great example, where you allow people to call or write into you and spill their guts. You're going to have people who try to create a humorous situation out of lying to you. And that's what he's dealing with right now. Somebody's written him a fake letter. He's going to call him up on the phone. And then he's going to deliver the great, "Remember, dear, I can smell a lie like a fart in a car."
Enclose your number. Reply.
Look at that phone. Those fucking clear phones where you can see all the gears. That's a landline phone, for those of you that don't know. And that would, unless she has her own line, that would have rang all through the house. Everybody would be awake right now. That was a thing that we were kind of tinkering with in the early 90s. It's like, hey, let's make everything clear so you can see all the inner workings. Did they ever make clear VCRs and clear tube TVs? A clear-backed flap screen might not be bad to look at. I wonder what that would look like. It showed this kid on the bus at the beginning looking pretty flustered and depressed. And then it showed him during the first broadcast typing, "Do you think I should kill myself?"
Pathetic moment, you're most anything, as long as it's real. I want
And
the shape, the feel,
he's going to open that letter in a minute, I believe.
I want brains and ectoplasm and cum spilled all over them. Hallelujah!
Watching him smoke that cigarette is making me want one, so don't mind if I do.
Free because
It's going to be that kind of party. I'm going to stick my dick in the mashed potatoes. Listen, Jack, baby, you got to put me in a movie, Jack.
you're no ordinary criminal. Put your feet up.
And this chick, I forget her name. She's very cute. She has given herself the nickname of the Eat Me, Beat Me lady. So she's playing right into that. She's not really that type of person, but she's turning the volume up to 11 to meet the cravings of the audience. She's being a little bit provocative. So they have this kind of pen pal, spoken word crush on each other without knowing their true identities. Which is yet another element of this movie, or another element of teenage life that this movie explores. The duality of who you really are and kind of the box you get shoved into socially when you're at school. How you fit into that hierarchy, how much you're willing to extend yourself, how expressive you are. And then on the alternate side of that coin, when you're at home, completely comfortable, just totally being yourself and what you're truly capable of. So you see, he's a great speaker. He's got personality, characteristics, and traits that people are attracted to. But when he's out among them face to face, he's not able to express them. Which is something you go through when you're young, like especially with women. Or I should say especially with communicating with the opposite sex. For me, it was communicating with girls. Because you never quite know. Nobody's willing to just cut the shit and put their cards on the table and say, listen, what's the score here, babe? So it's all this kind of back and forth social games and spoken cues and unspoken cues and signals sent and signals missed, and it's all very confusing. And you're not confident in the fact that anybody would even like you or be attracted to you, so it's hard for you to be confident that they do when they actually end up liking you. He's playing Beastie Boys, rapping along. He calls himself the Rap King of Arizona. And I don't know if different music was not exposed to different parts of the country at the time, because he's coming from New York, but these kids who, when they're listening to these tapes at school, they're playing these rap songs and they're listening to it attentively as if they've never heard any of it before. So he's exposing them to all these ideas and this art and expression. And they really take what he's saying and run with it. Now he gets the "should I kill myself" letter. And this is a pivotal moment in the movie. Because he's going to call this kid. Mr. Serious. And it's a bad idea to try to ask for advice about something this heavy from a provocative radio host, because he's got to play to his audience at the same time. He's got to be a little bit jokey with it. He's not your fucking therapist.
Alright, so, where is this gonna take place?
But he's kind of these kids' guru in a way. That's the way they feel about him.
Where is this alleged gun? Do you have it with you?
Like, if it was just these kids on an island, he would be elected president in a heartbeat. It would be no problem at all.
You're not gonna be one of those people who kills themselves and nobody has any idea why they did it, huh? That's why we need to know now.
See, this guy's actually on the verge of suicide, and he's pushing him in this aggressive fashion. And when you're depressed, you just don't have the energy to deal with anything. Just formulating a thought to respond to that question feels painful.
I didn't talk to one person.
So he's in a way pushing him farther over the edge, because he's just frustrating him. And this was like his last cry for help. And Christian Slater actually opens up to him and lets him behind the curtain and reveals that he's actually not popular and he's kind of nerdy and he eats his lunch alone. And that almost seems to be the shattering factor for that kid. Like, even this guy that has all this attention that everybody loves feels depressed and alone. What hope is there for me? And he's loading the gun right now and he actually kills himself. Malcolm Kaiser. Which is such a rash decision, especially when you're young. So much shit is swirling around when you're young. Just give that shit a chance to settle.
Mine had me tested because I said, alone in my room all day, naked, wearing only a cock ring.
Cock ring.
It bugs me. When thinks they know how a person should be. Who cares how I should
This is a very important monologue. No, this isn't the important. It happens after the suicide. My bad.
turn around? He tries to smile.
He's actually expressing some honest emotion here. This is how he feels when he's out with his peers face to face. He just can't. He's got like stage fright, but there's no stage. He's got social anxiety. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. I just fucking love this movie. I probably watch it at least 4 times a year.
Sleep tight, Cheryl. Sleep tight, Mr. Finance. Sleep tight.
Eat me, beat me, lady. It's such a great name. Happy Harry Hardon and the Eat Me, Beat Me Lady are such great names. He said, "Rest easy, Mr. Sirius. Hopefully you'll feel better tomorrow." He didn't realize quite how prophetic that was. So these kids are passing tapes around, listening to the shit in the morning, in the courtyard. And it's old school hip hop. Like Knocking the Boots by Ice-T and shit. And he taps into a resource here at the school of creativity and expression that they just weren't harnessing in themselves. Sorry, I had a notification on my phone. I had to make sure it was nothing important. What is that outfit? That purple and black houndstooth blazer jacket? This shit's crazy. Fashion, like decade over decade. I've learned to just accept it and not really make fun of it, because you just have to understand that that's the mindset of the people at that time. That's what was seen as acceptable and cool.
Like your school, for example.
And you either, at some point, you either make a willing decision to go along with the tide or a willing decision to go against the tide. And it's one or the other.
About your participation.
There's always the I do my own thing, or I stick with my own. You usually get trapped in the style that occurs the generation after you get out of high school, I think. Whatever, like in your early 20s, whatever you're wearing then, I think that's what you wear most of the rest of your life. And what's odd is, if you stick with that, if you stick with your high school wardrobe and fashion, people give you shit for being stuck in the past. But if you try to stay updated with the current fashion once you get to an advanced age, then you're a poser, you're trying too hard, you're going through an identity crisis, you can't fucking win. See, his problem is, he makes references in his show that are clues to his actual identity, and unknowingly. He talks about blackjack gum, which is not a common... I've never heard of it besides this movie. And she comes up here and he actually has blackjack gum. And he talks about eating his lunch alone on the stairs reading a book. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. So he's identifying himself. Maybe it's a passive way. Maybe he wants to be found out and he just doesn't know how to go about it, because if he knows that he's this popular and people like him this much as the radio personality, you would want almost to like put up a flag and say, "Hey, that's me over here, guys. Come and say it to my face. Come and shed some love on me." But he's kind of doing it in these weird cryptic ways. But she's catching on. So this guy has confiscated a tape from the kids, and they're in the teacher's lounge listening to it. And it's the part where he's reading the memo from the guidance counselor. Coincidentally enough. But the principal comes in a somber mood and informs them all of the suicide of Malcolm. So now the English teacher's going to go back to the class and tell them, and the weight of that conversation he had last night is going to come crashing down on his shoulders like the weight of the world. And he feels a sense of responsibility for it. Maybe justified, maybe not. He might be being too hard on himself. Depends on how you view the situation. That kid tried to throw him a lifeline, but he was not a part of anything leading into that kid's depression before that. So it's like one of those things where if you go to the doctor because you're sick and the doctor can't cure you, did the doctor kill you? No, the sickness did. But the Christian Slater's fucked up by this, which it would be a heavy moment. This is, again, some of how good the writing is in this movie. They're working in actual social commentary on the responsibility that comes with being a personality, having a voice like he does. You don't get that for free. You have sway over people, and sometimes people reach out to you and you aren't able to connect with them the way you want, and you feel some responsibility for what direction they go after that. And again, that may be justified at times and may be unjustified at times, but that doesn't change the fact that you feel connected to it. He now feels connected to this kid's suicide. This is the first we see of him going in to check his P.O. box. He does a half-assed job of disguising himself, but he's a fucking smart kid. He's got a P.O. box so that they don't mail stuff to his house. They don't know his identity. He can keep his veil of mystery around him. The thing that's fucked up is the Eat Me Beat Me lady always sends him red paper and red envelope. And he's so excited to read this because it's like his pen pal girlfriend almost. That he opens it right there I'm gonna sneeze. He opens it right there in the postal annex, and he's walking down the sidewalk reading it. She is the Eat Me Beat Me lady, and she's going to see that paper in his hand, and now it's all connected. She knows for sure it's him. She wrote that letter and mailed it to the radio guy. He has it in his hands. It's the smoking gun. Those glasses really, like, even his acting, he's so sly and cunning and aggressive and out there when he's on the radio, and then when he's out amongst the people and at school, he's just so demure and shy and mousy, and it's how it goes. Like, how he is when he's on the radio is like how everybody is when they're with their core group of friends. You know, like they're 2 or 3 real solid crew of friends. When you're hanging out, just watching your guys' favorite movie, or maybe you're at the fucking skate park if that's what you like to do. Maybe you're riding in the car to the beach, but you're just open and you're not worried about anybody judging you. You know that this is where you belong. But when he's at school, he's real uptight feeling. He doesn't know how he's supposed to act. He doesn't know how people are viewing him. He doesn't know what the best way to navigate this stream is, and that's just so authentic to real teenage existence, at least what I experienced. Technology and the internet and shit wasn't what it was today when I was in school. It was getting there. The internet was fairly prevalent. I had a cell phone when I was a senior in high school. We had text messaging. We didn't have iPhones though and shit like that. We weren't making YouTube videos. We didn't have Instagram. All we had was MySpace, and you couldn't even get to it on your phone unless you had like a top of the line phone, and then it was still a fucked up format. So those elements working into what it is to be a teenager today, I don't know how much that's affected things. It's probably adversely affected it, because this period of time where he gets to be free from that and go home and just feel like himself and feel normal and do whatever he wants, you don't get that today. Because if you've got somebody who's fucking with you at school, they're fucking with you on social media when you go home. At least that would be my assumption. So I think that kids today probably have less of this cathartic release and more of the pent up in a shell, mousy, not knowing what to do. At least the ones who are on the business end of the bullying. The bullies, of course, have their own mental issues going on. This is another Leonard Cohen song that's fucking great. If It Be Your Will. Sometimes when I just feel like zoning out and chilling, like a long car trip where I'm not delivering papers or something gets you really pissed off and worked up, I just put on Leonard Cohen. It's nice and calm. It's beautiful. He's got that gorgeous bass voice. He's got the female backup vocalists. It's decent lyrical content. It's just perfect for... I can just zone out on Leonard Cohen. This song is perfect for listening to after an argument, too. And then the up-tempo, man. That'd be a great entrance song for a fucking professional wrestler or a UFC fighter. See, he's kind of exploring how he's just kind of fallen into this responsibility. He didn't expect this. He thought he was talking to... Yeah, see, he thought he was talking to nobody. He just was getting it out. It was like his journal, but it's verbal. Yeah. This is the speech I was talking about. I wish that I could just put it up to the fucking phone and have you play. See, he realized he was never going to be normal, so he just decided to steer into it and go with it. Be who he is. And he's apologizing to Malcolm. And he said he never meant to hurt anybody, but he feels the guilt of the fact that he didn't come out and say, don't do it, to Malcolm. He never told him not to do it. And that's kind of what's fucking with his head. He doesn't feel like he did everything he could have done. And the weight of that responsibility has made him decide that he's no longer going to broadcast. Feels like he's playing with fire too much. And the kids are distraught when he says that. They're really actually upset by the fact that he's gone. It's like The Sopranos just went off the air. He's a meaningful part of their lives in this small community. This is the fucking speech that I was talking about earlier.
What possessed him? How could he do such a terrible thing?
He's examining the different aspects and angles of being a teenager and the different stresses and pressures.
Movies, magazines, and TV telling you what to do.
All the outside influences.
Your job, your purpose is to get accepted. Get a cute girlfriend.
Here comes the dog again. Yes, I've been out here the whole fucking time. Thank you. Okay. And the idea that there's one path that everybody needs to go down and can go down. And he's saying, well, sometimes there's going to be people whose path veers off this way or veers off that way. There's going to be some people who aren't built to roll straight. No pun intended. Like, it's like telling everybody they have to be a basketball player. Well, what if you're short and fat and you can't be a basketball player? You just gonna force them into that role and make them the worst possible basketball player and kill their self-esteem? And there are certain elements that seem to comprise most excellent people, certain character traits. But there isn't always necessarily a straight path of life or a straight path of success. There's a lot of fucking zigging and zagging. There's a lot of highs and lows. And I love this. He's talking about heaven. He's up there with all your family and everything. He's examining the different angles of suicide, even like a stand-up comedian would. Saying you go up to heaven, all your family and everything's there, but it's fucking boring. There's nothing to do there. And then he says you feel like you have this whole peaceful exit and all the problems are solved, but you actually shit yourself and your family has to come in and find you dead with a Stanley steamer in your pants. Again, it's the level of commentary that they're offering is superb to me. Maybe my feeble mind isn't capable of understanding concepts much more advanced than this, so this is at my cognitive limit, so therefore that's why it seems so awesome to me. It's at the peak of my ability to understand. I don't know. I'd love to hear from other people and hear if they feel the same way about this movie that I do. This is a kind of a core element of being human, though, is feeling disturbed and being somewhat disturbed, because those experiences are what make up who you are and your personality and your character. If you just put somebody in a white padded room with no trauma and no experience, they'd probably go crazy and they would be the least interesting person you've ever met in your fucking life. He's creating a call to action here that's going to get him in trouble, though. So he's got the suicide thing that people are kind of going to go against him for, the adults and the censorship people at least. And now he has this call to action. He's telling people to go crazy and give people attitude, and he just inspired this girl to put all of her shit, like her hair dryer and her jewelry and all that, in the microwave, and she just turned it on. Anybody who has an IQ below 70 listening to this that doesn't know, you can't put metallic objects in the microwave. So she puts all that in the microwave, turns it on, it looked like for quite a while, sits down at the dining room table and watches all the shit explode right into her face. So, luckily for him, she's not the type of person that's going to be the Happy Harry Hardon told me to do it, Eminem told me to do it, Marilyn Manson told me to do it. She takes responsibility for it. Because if she had played that the other way, he could have been fucked. And they're having this great blowout party moment. He's playing Kick Out the Jams and celebrating the fact that he's not going to go off the radio. He's going to keep broadcasting. And now he's got another... We're going to take it back down to a serious tone. And we're going to examine yet another social issue of what it's like to be gay in high school. So he gets this letter from this kid who talks about having a crush on another guy in school. This other guy invites him somewhere. They're all hanging out, getting drunk. There's a bunch of guys. And he kind of confesses his love to him. I'm gonna take a hit.
Started fooling around, and then I sort of told him how much I liked
Okay, so he's hanging out with the dude solo.
They were drinking.
Excuse me. The dude suggests they take their pants off.
Took my clothes and threw them off in the
Sorry. So this kid on the phone did take his pants off. The other guy stalled on him. Some other friends showed up. They took his clothes and threw them up in the trees. Then they started making fun of him, calling him names. So to go from that moment where you think you're about to actually connect with somebody who gets you and have like real legitimate intimacy and then be betrayed by that person in almost the most heinous way and have them essentially commit what is a hate crime on you would be devastating.
Swallow it, Donnie. I think you're forgetting what it's like when you're young.
Kids are ruthlessly brutal to each other. The adults are convinced that it's not even a real story, but it seems pretty genuine.
I think it's time to bring in the feds. This is FCC jurisdiction.
I feel bad that I didn't even do anything. I didn't even say anything.
And since, especially back then, being gay is looked at with such a deviant quality that the people who did the gay bashing almost seemed like they felt justified in doing so. So, like, you know, like, you're this deviant, so it's nothing for me to do something deviant back to you. Seem to be kind of the mindset that they're exploring.
Are you there?
He does a great job
So I guess you think
of hearing this kid out and easing his mind a bit. At least he tells him that he's strong. When this is actually, because this was an issue in the 90s a lot, or at least felt like it was coming to a head. I remember growing up hearing adults around me who were opposed to gay marriage, who, you know, would speak poorly of gay people. And I remember thinking, like, man, once I get to be an adult, my generation is going to be cool with gay marriage, and it'll be all awesome. There'll be no problems. Everybody will be awesome. We'll get along. We won't have to have these conversations anymore. And fast forward to today, and it almost seems to be amplified. I don't know what happened. Like, I legitimately thought, I was like, well, I see all these adults that have this issue, but nobody my age seems to have this issue. So by the time people my age are adults, this won't be an issue anymore. And I was totally fucking wrong. I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but I guess I was also only examining a small sample size. I was looking at the adults and peers in my small area. This song ceased to exist. I have a hard time finding too many things, if anything, to criticize about this movie. It is up there for me.
Believe it or not, I care. 8:30 to 3:30. What's that?
I'd be really interested in getting a few people who are very different from me together and have them watch this with me and see how much our opinions vary. Is it just a certain type of person that's going to really like this movie? The way people like scary movies or things, or is this resonate across a vast spectrum of people the way I think that it should? They're slut shaming each other. It was fine.
I want all the locks in the school changed. I want a list of every student with relatives on the staff.
Why is there a framed violin on the wall?
What's it say?
What?
Crestwood's a maggot customer.
It's not even a good diss.
Yeah.
This kid's an entrepreneur. That's a hustle. I wonder how you copy a... I did a small amount of recording shit off the radio onto cassettes. But I never tried to make multiple copies of it or do multiple recordings simultaneously. I wonder how he's doing that. If he's recording one master and then making copies of it, or if he's got several tape recorders right up next to the radio recording all at the same time. Scaling something like that in the non-digital era.
Hey, you Dom? Yeah, I'm Joey. Can you get me into the PA?
See, once we got into the CD burning era or the MP3 era, you just record that shit and put it on your computer, and you could burn as many copies of the CD as you wanted to. You just have to sit there and do them one at a time, but they'd burn fairly quickly. When I was a freshman in high school, I don't know why I said a freshman in high school. I didn't go to college, so the only time I was ever a freshman was in high school. Anyway, let's pause for a second while they... Don't pause the movie. I mean, I'll pause what I was talking about to admire the scene where they hack into the PA with a boombox and analog cords. This takes some know-how. This takes some strategery, if you will. I'm aware I just said that word wrong. If you don't know what the reference is, your ass better call somebody. But it's like a radio chopped up... I don't even know what to call it. It's like a scrambled, chopped up mishmash of the call with the counselor. And it's all put over like dance music and shit. It's very creative and would have been much harder to do back then than today. You have to take that into consideration. A lot of this technology related shit that they're doing, much more difficult back then. I looked this guy up, the one that's playing the high school kid with the blonde hair, on IMDb, and I'm pretty sure he never did anything else. He seems like he would have been, he's like a Pauly Shore type character. I don't know why he wouldn't. Oh, this fucking provocateur newscaster. He's making it look like there's some war zone down at the high school when this kid just lit smoke bombs. That lets on to something there. The fact that she said, "I can quite legally expel you," means that she feels the need to defend her decision. So there's something there. You need to dig in there a little more and go, well, who said that it wasn't legal? Why would you think that that's what I was going to say? Are you up to something? She's going to tell him about the girl microwaving all of her shit. And he's overwhelmed by this. He wasn't looking to be a dictator or to influence people in this way. He just wanted a cathartic release of expression. Personally. And I guess he inspired her to do her same type of thing, and it was just manifested in a different action, but it was a destructive action and something that he could kind of be blamed for. Calling that to action, or at least inciting it, influencing it in some way. You know, in the 80s, they tried to say that if you played records backwards or played the same song over and over again, you would kill people. Like, people have believed all kinds of dumb shit over the course of time. Way back in history, before they knew that maggots turned into flies, they thought that flies spontaneously manifested themselves. They thought that if you just had the right elements in place, it would spontaneously produce a fly into existence. They didn't know about eggs and maggots and larvae at that point in time. They actually believed that a fly just popped out of thin air if you had the right circumstances in the environment. He registered the P.O. box to Charles U. Farley, which is Chuck U. Farley, which if you switch the CH and the F is fuck you, Charlie. He's now seeing reports about himself on the local news. This would be a bit surreal. Especially when his self-esteem is not very high. Like, when he carries himself like he's kind of low. Not sure of himself. And now he's got all this happening around him that he's caused.
Apparently he goes there.
Yeah, it's not exactly the best school in the district. I mean, there are some problems with it.
I figure you don't rock the boat, especially in your city.
See, his dad's trying to convince him that it's one of the best schools because the statistics show that it is. But he actually goes there and he's like, "Nah, Dad, it's not that way."
Myself and the staff of Hubert Humphrey High, I would like to thank you for turning out in such an outfit. I congratulate you on your concern. Now,
So they're now holding. It's not a press conference. It's a community meeting.
new school commissioner, fresh from several educational triumphs on the East Coast, Brian Hunter.
Which his dad is now going to speak at.
Before I introduce the rest of our speakers for the day,
Excuse me, Mrs. Presswood. Can we just skip the preliminaries and find out what you're doing about all this?
well, when I introduce the
And this meeting is basically about him.
our hotline, and you'll also
Wait a
discuss
minute. The kids who need the most help, like the ones with drug problems, they don't go in for stuff like that.
I know kids. I mean, they just want to be happy.
Would you please sit down?
Frankly, this radio person is the whole problem. Are we going to allow this guy to be heard by anyone who can turn a dial?
The parents are now trying to control what their kids have access to, not via their end, not via not allowing the kids or getting rid of the radio, whatever. They're trying to go after Christian Slater's character and get him off the radio. They're trying to attack him and blame him for all these issues.
My name is Paige Woodward, and I have something to say to you people. People are saying that Harry is introducing bad things and encouraging bad things. Well, it seems to me that these things were
See, this is important what she does here.
My God, why don't you people
She's not allowing them to push the responsibility for what she did onto him.
probation of some kind? Hey, we're all
She's saying he's just calling everybody's attention to the problems that already existed.
emotions of being hurt.
So don't blame him for the problems because they were there. He just pointed them out. And then Christian Slater's dad just heard that so many kids there are on a probation of some kind. And the blonde girl teacher, the English teacher, she also heard that. And that's going to be important for later on. Now she's using the news cameras to reiterate her message for him to stay on the radio and stay hard. Which that's a bit hilarious that that's what they chose to go with, but he's Happy Harry hard on. And the Eat Me Beat Me lady told him to talk hard. So stay hard now has become, keep talking real shit. Keep speaking the truth. Keep bringing the power to the people. He's like a leader of a revolution, essentially. Totally unintentionally. And now the popular girl and the outcasts, they're all coming together on this common ground. It's crazy. He's a uniting force. Anybody who feels like this school has ever done them wrong is now joining up on a team, on the Happy Harry Hard-On team. That looks cold. You can see her breath. She looks like she's trying not to look as cold as she actually is. If this is really Arizona, it gets cold as fucking Arizona. I don't know why you would place it in Arizona if it wasn't filmed in Arizona. I guess you could film it in California, not have to travel. But then just why not make it California? He's burning all of his letters in the barbecue.
Was your letters?
Aren't your parents gonna see all that? So he's ready to run away from this responsibility and call it a day. Burn every trace that he was this guy and killed the character. And she's offended by this.
So I guess you're not going on tonight.
This is how all those kids at the football field would feel too. They love him.
You know, you can't just shout fire in a theater and then walk out. You have a responsibility to people who believe in you. What is this?
See, and her side of this is that she's claiming that he is obligated now
Get the hell out of here, bitch.
to guide these people because he's brought them all together. And he's kind of like, this isn't what I wanted to fucking happen. So how is it? It's not like I set out to create a group of people to follow me. So why should I have to lead said group of people now? But he's going on the radio.
I mean, he can talk, but never when he wants to. Not to girls, not to people.
Oh, excuse me. And now he's doing another kind of cathartic expression where he's talking about a hypothetical friend, but it's actually himself he's speaking about. And all the adults from the meeting have rushed home to listen to him speak. And he's offering commentary on the awkwardness in trying to communicate your feelings to a girl you like. At least breaking the ice. So he basically creates this narrative where there's a guy who can't talk, and he feels like he's gonna be alone, but then he finally meets somebody he likes, which is possibly the worst thing that can happen to a guy that can't talk. And now he's worried. His parents are outside his door, and they heard him talking.
Give me a second here.
And he's got to try to cover his tracks real quick and let him in.
2 seconds.
Mark, unlock the door.
He's trying to hide everything so that they can't tell he was broadcasting. He smokes cigarettes and shit down there. Do they just allow that? Because they would definitely be able to smell it. Is that his bedroom, or is that just the garage or the basement that he uses for this? I think it's just the basement he uses for this. See, his parents are suspecting him of being the radio guy, and he's about to confess, and she pops up and saves his ass.
Hi, I'm Nora. Nero. No.
And his parents are delighted because they've been trying to encourage him to talk to girls and all that kind of thing. There's a little bit of an undercurrent of homophobia with the parents. It almost seems like they're worried that he's gay. There's the scene where his mom's like, "Have you ever even tried to talk to a girl?" And then how thrilled they are that there's a girl there, and they're just completely willing to leave him alone with her, and they almost seem like they want to throw a party because he's got a girl there. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading that the wrong way. But it seems like there's just a tinge of homophobia there on the parents' part. And now she just did him assault. Like, there was never a more authentic sign that someone likes you than what she just did for him, especially at that age. She just popped up, put herself on the line, introduced herself to his parents, and it's just offered a new level of comfort to him. And now he's playing fart sounds. And they're upstairs talking about him and the girl still, and they just dismiss it and turn the radio off. Speaking of off, he just pulled his top off. He's not in bad shape. He could hit the weight room though. He could certainly stand to bulk up a little bit. See, the teacher's got a bottle of wine and she's listening to him on the radio.
Arranged. Well, guess what I say?
So be it. He's even got catchphrases. This motherfucker.
I say, Floki, congratulations for Miss Cressman. She gets 100 lashes for every single kid.
Even the principal is listening to it. The counselors.
Make them work for a living.
He's got everybody's ears.
Oh, I gotta give him another call.
He's lit the town on fire. It's crazy. All just by talking about what he sees.
Harry, I would like the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Beaver.
Just a moment. I'll see if
I'm gonna sneeze again, goddammit. So he's calling the counselor, and they have the lines hooked up, and they're gonna trace the phone call.
My young friend.
You're in.
It's all over, son. This phone call has been traced.
I think that you're supposed to lead him on a little bit more before you just tell him the call has been traced. That was like 5 seconds, and this is 1990. So now the police are on their way to bust him because the phone call's been traced. And again, so be it. He says hallelujah. It's almost it's a relief that he's just going to be caught and he doesn't have to continue on this train anymore. At least not conducting it.
Don't just sit there, man. Run!
And the audience is very frustrated by the fact that he's about to be busted. Their superhero is about to go to jail. But skrrr, he's using a phone line from somebody down the street. I don't know how plausible this is, but hey, I like it. Back in 1990, when you saw it, for sure you thought it was plausible. We didn't know any better.
In any house within 1,000 yards of here.
1,000 yards? That's a pretty long fucking range. I don't know about that. That sounds like an advertisement for that phone brand.
Waving out at you. Naked.
Again, the cock ring. He even made the teacher blush with that one.
Whoa. Last minute on the run. I'm gonna cut out now with this unusual song I'm dedicating to an unusual person. Makes me feel kind of unusual.
Even thinking about her, he's not as eloquent. He doesn't have the same economy of words. She just gets him a little bit flustered. So he plays, again, another great song. At least it fits with this part of the movie fucking perfectly. And he said he's dedicating this unusual song to an unusual person that makes him feel unusual. Pops back in his chair, lights himself a cigarette. And she's outside his house listening on her headphones. That's dedication. Like, he's got her in the palm of his hand. She's ready to just melt like butter. It's like an M&M if you took the candy shell off, and it would melt in your hand.
It's okay, you don't have to talk. You don't have to say anything.
She is the wife in the first Punisher movie that gets run over by the car, I believe, with the son. The Thomas Jane Punisher movie. I think we get to see her boobies right here. And I thought right. Why don't you touch my nipples with your nipples? Man, those are some perky pre-kid boobies. Do you prefer the term boobies or tits? What are your thoughts on that matter? Don't look at my eyes like that. I can't handle that. I don't care if we're acting or not. She's the way she's licking her lips. She looks like she wants to consume him.
We're just crazy. So be it.
this is the moment they become a couple right here. I'm in a bit of a trance looking at her boobies. For some reason, if this was a horror movie, I would probably be calling them tits. But because this kind of movie, I'm calling them boobies. I don't really understand why. It's just the way it went. Just kiss her already, Jesus. And now they just got surprised by the cops dropping his neighbor off. Is that a fake garage? What is... If you just saw when they were dropping those neighbors off, it looked like a garage door in the front, but it also looked like it was a solid piece. It didn't move. It was a weird... I don't know what that was. Some kind of a like rock stucco thing, but it had a pattern in it. He knows how to talk dirty and influence people. He read the Lenny Bruce book. Better check yourself before you wreck yourself. Christian Slater in your ass is bad for your health. You need to get off the grass with that sweater. You're going to be picking shit out of there for days. You need to get outside more, bro. You live in Arizona and you're pale as Casper. That Triple H logo is solid. If I didn't address that already, that's how he got the Happy Harry Hard-On name, is the Hubert Humphrey High School. That Triple H initials. He took the initials and made it Happy Harry Hard-On. Ooh, he's wearing a more stylish shirt today. He's trying to be a cool guy. And now he's got a companion out in this environment. They're a tandem. He can communicate with somebody out in a social environment.
Yeah.
He's got a friend. And it's a girl to boot. And he's got a reason to look forward to going to school. That's an important factor. Having a relationship like this, when you're at that age with all those different social dynamics going on, it can really be a driving force for helping you look forward to the next day and not get just mired in the mundaneness of it all. Is she trying to tell him to put his dick in her mouth? She's just sitting there with her mouth open. Oh, they just kissed in public. Their thing. It's undeniable now. She looked like she wanted to play with her vagina right there. Just reaching down there weird. Talk Hard is spray painted into the grass. Like... He's more popular than the New England Patriots per capita. If you just took this town, it's like 85% of this town knows who he is.
Mark, what is with you?
In name and voice only, and it's not even his real name or his real voice, but the intellectual property that he's created. The pressure just keeps getting to him. He didn't raise his hand and say, I want to lead the revolution. He was hiding off in his own area doing his own thing. And everybody came to him and said, you are the leader of the revolution. And he keeps trying to say, no, I'm not. Get out of here. I was just doing my own thing. If you want to listen to my thing, that's fine. Quit asking me to lead your revolution. And she keeps saying, no, don't you understand? It's so rare to find somebody as capable as you of leading the revolution. So that's why it's so crucial that you step up and decide to do it, because we may never have a more qualified candidate. It's essentially what she's saying to him. I'm paraphrasing.
Or shall we discuss the identity of our DJ friend?
And now the principal is handpicking kids to bring in to discuss their file and possibly punish them or treat them adversely, you know, suspend them, give them a mark against their, I don't know what exactly you do with a kid's file when they're in high school, but she's blackmailing them, trying to get them to reveal the identity of the mystery DJ, Happy Harry Hard On. And the only one who actually knows it is Nira, or fuck, what's her name? His girlfriend. It's the third time in one podcast that the dog has come out here.
I'm talking about your dismissal.
And now she's fired the English teacher. This bitch is just running roughshod. We find out later exactly the extent of the dirt she's up to. What pipeline is that? There's a huge pipeline up there in the background. The fuck is that? Is that for water? Because Arizona's a desert? And he just saw FCC trucks. So shit's getting real now. He's about to be federally censored.
Yeah, it's Federal Communications Commission. They can drive around and triangulate wherever the hell the radio signal's coming from.
I don't know if that was accurate to the capabilities of them at the time, but it seems legit to me, especially now.
Frankly, I don't give a shit.
So, these are real world consequences now. They, in this, according to the movie, they can drive around and pinpoint where he's broadcasting from and figure out who he is and arrest him.
I'm failing math.
And I guess, I don't know why it's illegal, but it was illegal to, probably still is illegal to broadcast over the radio without a license or something. I don't know what exactly is involved there. I just always thought there were so many barriers to building a signal that would reach a meaningful distance that only certain few people got into it. I don't know. The idea that it's illegal, I guess that's why it's called pirate radio, because it's illegal. It's like pirating is illegal, but I don't know how do you go about starting a legitimate one? What's the difference? He's just broadcasting. If people want to listen, that's a free market thing. Like,
Brother, what the hell's happening here?
I guess you would have all the waves would be clogged up though. You would have so many radio waves. It'd be like a different, and there wouldn't be enough channels for everybody to have one.
Every teenager I know.
Can't you understand that
But
nothing is more important than a good education?
and you also, it's not like YouTube or something where you get a tally of how many people have actually consumed this content. They would just continue broadcasting because they would never get any feedback. They'd never know if people were listening or not. See, she created an enemy when she fired this girl. You gotta be careful with that shit. When she fired her, she should have been banned from the building. That's for sure. This Luis Chavez is from the opening scene in the movie. He gets pulled off the bus immediately. Shep Shepherd is the fucking name of the reporter. It's such it sounds like like if you abbreviated the description of a dog. His name is Shep and he's a German Shepherd. Shep Shepherd. He's got a point there. See, that's where there's a difference. You can't damage somebody else's property in the name of free speech or free expression. But you can't take away his ability to express his opinions verbally. It just becomes a matter of the legality of broadcasting, I guess, over the airwaves and the consequences of that, which I'm not familiar with. They don't really go into that too much. They probably would have fucked up the accuracy of it. We just know that it's not going to be good if he gets caught, and we don't really need to know much more than that. He's a very intelligent guy. Somebody needs to harness that. Or he needs to put it to full use once he gets out of juvenile hall. You can't be making nooses. Who even knows how to make a noose? I guess that knowledge was probably more communal the farther back in the past you go. That was Luis Chavez right there on the right, wearing the black jacket with the upside down triangle logo on it. It started with just a couple cars, and it's gotten to the point where there's a full-on crowd countdown. All that work he was doing that we saw, he was rigging up his mother's Jeep Wrangler to be a mobile broadcasting unit, essentially. Which I like in theory, but it would be so hard to hear him because they're driving around with the wind. I've tried to she just got real self-conscious of her bedroom when he walked in there. She started looking around like, shit, is this place fittable for him to see right now? Do I have anything that I don't want him to see? Ow, what is this? Like she was naked, even though she's been naked in front of him, at least topless. She felt more vulnerable when he walked into her bedroom. She got expelled because she wouldn't give his identity to the principal, and now he is recruiting her to help him. Because who else would he have?
Oh, wow. It's my mom's Jeep. She kind of loaned it to me.
And again, this may be a loophole. Maybe this technology is not practical at all. Maybe this wouldn't have worked objectively. I know that he would have had trouble broadcasting a clear signal with them driving around because his microphone would be picking up so much wind and background noise. As I said, I recorded a podcast. I had the windows up for portions of it, and just the road noise and just the general vibration of the car came through way more than I thought it would. Part of that is because I had my phone hung up on a mount on my windshield, and so it was way closer to the vibrating portions of the car than it was to my face, which was probably a mistake. But I was shocked at how much of it actually came through. I don't know what song that is, but I like it. The Hi Dad, Happy Birthday, I'm in Jail. He's created like a concert in a field, and he's not even there. People just gather and play their radios and dance around. He's got like a mosh pit going. They've kind of conceded to the fact that they may get caught and arrested tonight, and they're just, so be it. They're going to go ahead and try.
This is the problem with free speech.
No, it is not the problem with free speech. He has a right to say anything he wants about you, and he's right. That's why it struck a nerve. You're fucking brown noser. pencil pusher, pencil neck dick face. And he called you out on it, and you can't handle it. I like how it shows these trucks trying to do U-turns and all this shit.
Free America. America's ready. I'm ready. I mean, I want a million voices.
Like, you see what I mean? You can see the wind blowing through his hair. They're in a convertible Jeep Wrangler. It's an older school one, and it's got a completely flat windshield. And he's just got a handheld microphone like a singer would have at a concert in his hand, riding in the car. There would be a significant amount of wind going in there. That's the only loophole I've been able to identify. But again, I don't have enough knowledge about all that equipment he's got strapped into the back with a bungee cord to know if that's realistic or not.
Not everyone goes to college.
Mr. Hunter, I think you should be aware of something.
And so if he is going to be caught, he's using this broadcast to bring the real shit. He's going to put his cards on the table, and he's actually listing the names of all the students that have been expelled and the dates.
She doesn't know what she's talking about.
And this teacher has reviewed these files, and she is ratting out the principal to Christian Slater's dad. And he's actually above her. He's on the school board. So he's an authority figure to her.
It's all for the good of the school.
Those kids had rights.
She's doing some dirty shit. She was waiting because the school gets funded per student. It's on a, it's based off population. So she would wait till the school got their funding, and then she would start expelling all the kids that she thought were deplorable. And then by doing so, she would end people who had low grade point averages. And by doing so, she would raise the average test score and grade point average at her school. And that's how they achieve these remarkable statistics. So they're juking the system so that they can get all the money. And then they're cutting a bunch of the kids back so they actually have a surplus money for the amount of kids they have. And they're selectively getting rid of the poor students so that they have disproportionately high test scores. So she's about to be in some shit. You can't do any of that. She's hardcore discriminating against people. It seemed to be based off just their grade point average, maybe their social status, and their kind of level in the social hierarchy. She seemed to target more the social outcast group. This is the first time he's seen this with his own eyes and seen really like this whole gathering of people for him.
Okay.
But his voice disguiser's broken.
Really me now. No more hiding.
The jig is up.
We're all worried.
And he's actually gets to look out on this field of his audience while he's speaking to them for the first time.
One thing, it can't get any worse. It can only get better.
And they've all gone to a dead silent calm. You could hear a pin drop if it wasn't for the fact he's talking.
Surviving it is the whole point.
He has their full undivided attention.
You're strong. Living it. So just hang on and hang in there. No, I know all about
He's connecting with a part of them they'll probably remember for the rest of their lives.
Why bother generation myself? But why did I bother to come out here tonight? And why did you?
And he's just saying, fuck it. If you don't fit into what you think they want you to be, find your own way. Do your own thing. It can work out. And if people are upset with it, so be it.
I believe everything that's in me. The whole
I've kind of got that. Growing up, I always got like the, oh, you're so smart, you're this, you're that, you're going to go to college and you're going to be this or you're going to be that. And as I got older, I was just like, that's just not what I'm into. None of those paths sound interesting to me. I just kind of want to jut off in different directions and chase different whimsies and I still make my monthly nut and pay my bills and have all that shit covered. But I like having flexibility and different paths to go and not being stuck in something. And I don't like having somebody else have the keys to my fucking financial security. They can just let me go at any moment and I can't replace the income. I don't like all that. I like being self-reliant, doing my own thing. And I've gotten a fair amount of criticism from family members over the years for that. Because with that comes that, you know, I work a lot of weekends. I don't, you know, holidays, whatever. I don't take vacations. I sacrifice some things to have freedoms in other places. And so whenever somebody wants me to do something on a Saturday and I say I gotta work or I'm doing something else, that's when it comes up. Why don't you have a normal job or you have weekends off? And it's like, well, I'm not a normal person. We're just gonna have to deal with that. So be it. So they found him out, and the chase is on. So she drives down onto the field of all his audience, and he's just speaking directly to them face to face. He's on the camera. They're seeing him for his identity for the first time. They heard his voice for the first time, and then there's the censorship. He's silenced. They just kicked him off YouTube, and he no longer has a voice. But his voice will live on through the way he's inspired every single one of these kids. Even this teacher, he inspired her to look at what was really going on and realize that she was on the team that was doing the dirt. She didn't bring it to light until after she got cut from the team, but nonetheless, she brought it to light. Sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. It's a Johnny Cash lyric. Actually, who originally sung Sooner or Later God'll Cut You Down? Was that Elvis? I've never heard the original version. I love the Johnny Cash version. Sooner or later God'll cut you down. So he gets handcuffed, put in the back of the van. He turns around and says, "Stay hard." And now it shows the city in the night, or all those houses again, but it's a bunch of voices. It's like the opening scene, but instead of just him, it's a bunch of voices. And they're all just, "Hey, is anybody out there?" And they're all just expressing themselves. He created a movement. And that is Pump Up the Volume from 1990, starring Christian Slater. And I love the shit out of that movie. I'm so glad that it was made in 1990 and not just a year or two earlier, so that it qualifies as a 90s movie. Because whenever I'm talking to people about movies or I hear like classic or cliche 90s movies brought up, this one doesn't seem to be mentioned. It doesn't, at least to my knowledge, doesn't get the respect that it deserves. This is a great fucking movie. It's written well. It's got a lot of layers. It examines a lot of different issues, a lot of which we're still dealing with today. It stays relevant, even though it's in an obsolete era, using an obsolete medium. It still translates to current day remarkably well, and it just captures what it is to be a teenager, at least what it was in the 90s and early 2000s to be a teenager. Like I had mentioned earlier, I'm not sure how much of that you guys have nowadays with the influx of technology just proliferating in every aspect of your life and expanding exponentially to where it's pretty much connected to you at all times. We didn't have that going on for us. And you see, he especially didn't have that. He was on the radio connected to these people for like an hour and a half a day. And then other than that, he was completely disconnected. He didn't have, yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed the commentary track. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good shit. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the podcast feed on SoundCloud. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you can go to YouTube where that's where I post my reviews, because those are, I actually take a video of my face while I'm doing those, so I show myself. So if you want to check out the reviews of the movies, you have to go to YouTube. Those aren't cross-posted, again, because they have a video component to them, whereas the commentaries are posted on both platforms. If you need, you can go to Instagram at Avarice Trading, and in my bio there's a link tree and there's links to all that stuff. Until the next time, this is Devin thanking you for tuning in and signing off and saying until the next time, be easy.